Our rank structure is pretty simple. So at first strike, we have just a few color belts, but we have a number of stripes in the process to help people work their way through the syllabus. Now, our syllabus is incredibly comprehensive, okay, very, very comprehensive. We try not to leave any stone uncovered, if you will, so that by the time you reach black belt, you actually are relatively competent at understanding combatives. You know, you have a clear understanding of everything from footwork to advanced, practical techniques in terms of taking away firearms retention, bladed weapons, impact weapons, that kind of thing. So our black belts, they're not paid for black belts. You know what I mean? They're not like you go to some schools, some dojos or dojangs, and they spend 2 or 3 years or 4 years of paying a rather exorbitant fee, and then they do some poomsae or some forms, and they know 5 or 6 kicks and some punches, and they never once have taken a punch in their life, unless it was maybe perhaps by accident, and they have no pugilistic training. They don't understand boxing. It's not like that. Okay, I'm not saying that doesn't serve its purpose in society. We just don't train like that. The way that we tried to design everything from the ground up, well, over the last 20 plus years now, has been about making sure that every student who learns from us walks out of our doors or learns from our seminars or our conferences or via our online training, they learn something practical, relevant, and street-worthy. And the biggest thing that we teach, the most important philosophy is very akin to what Bruce Lee taught in the 1970s, and that is use what is useful for you and dismiss that which is not. And so even though we teach chess moves, ultimately you're playing the chess game, and so it would be inappropriate to remotely suggest that you have to do it X way, okay? And we also test things religiously. We're deliberately out there trying to find out whether or not something actually works, rather than passing it on for the sake of tradition. So that's sort of what makes us different in terms of our rank structure and how we approach things. And our rank structure is an amalgamation of traditional Japanese that came out of the early 1900s, late 1800s, as the Ministry of Education there started developing ranking structures within their public school system for things like judo and so forth and so on, as well as some touching over from some other more traditional arts and some more modern arts, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example. So we, in our system or in our way or our approach, if you will, the red belt is the highest rank you can get. Actually, there's versions of red belts, but none of us have that, and we don't really care. We just pretty much go up to black belt and then have rankings in that. And the reminder is that we're never going to reach that level. We're never really going to get where we want to get. We try to take a very humble approach, and people aren't appointed just because it's political issues. There's a lot of things that we do differently in that respect. So very traditional. The white belt is the normal starting rank. Okay, so when you come in, you're a first Q. So any student, doesn't matter whether they have a black belt or not. It doesn't mean they can't progress faster, but they start out just like I would start out if I went to another system, regardless of how many black belts I have and how long I've been doing it and how many stripes I have. It's irrelevant. Every school and system has sort of their own thing, and some of it can be transported in, some of it can't, or transferred, as the case may be. So think of it like a college. As you get into this, you'll understand more because you'll have access to our syllabus and the things that we teach if you're going after ranking. So, for example, to get your yellow belt, you have to have a CPR certificate, and to get your second Dan black belt, you have to have EMT, basic EMT certification. So we have requirements that are academic in nature. To get your black belt, you have to do a dissertation, 20,000 words or more. It has to be academic in nature, and it has to be on a topic that your advisor and you agree to that is directly relevant to your martial arts training or your martial arts practice. So first Q, it doesn't require anything. You show up, you sign up, you become a member, you're now a white belt. So on your white belt, you'll notice it has a black sheath. That black sheath is a constant reminder that your goal is to become a black belt. So you have to have so many hours, and you have to have certain credentials passed every single step of the way. And we don't charge big exorbitant fees for every single rank test. It's not how we do things, okay? Your fees are relatively all-inclusive for the most part. There's some minor fees periodically, but we don't We don't do that. We're not trying to take advantage of people. We're not dangling this over in front of your face like a carrot. You can get it. You can do it. We do think you can earn this, but we recognize this is just nothing more than a belt, right? I mean, if you think back to Karate Kid, the joke was, do you have a black belt? And he says, yeah, I got a J.C. Penney's $20, or whatever his comment was, Pat Morita's character. So we have really tried to approach it from that perspective. We recognize that a black belt is just a symbol internally. But we also want to make sure, because people's perception of a black belt is that all black belts are created equal, and they're not. They're absolutely not. So just because you have a black belt doesn't mean you're competent. So our goal was to actually try to meet or exceed the standard perception in society that if you have a black belt, you actually are an expert, or you are very competent. So to get from here to the next belt, yellow, right, you have to go through 6 cues. So cue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? And each one of these belts have 6. There are 30 in total, and it works its way all the way up to brown belt. So there will be steps for this, and as they progress, there will be steps for this. And you'll notice that everything is branded on our belts, so I'll do a close-up for you. You can see that it has our logo on it. You can see that it says student on it, and you don't get out of that student ranking until you become a black belt, and then it says certified black belt. So white to yellow, yellow to blue, same thing. You'll notice all the belts have that black belt reminder. They all say student, they all have our logo on it. From blue, we then go to purple, and from purple, finally, you get into brown, which is your last step before you reach black. Typical brown belt. The idea being that as you practice, this becomes soiled, and eventually it's pretty dirty because you didn't wash it, and you're a dirty person, and you apparently don't know how to use a washing machine, and then eventually it becomes a black belt, right? So now if you look at this, what you'll notice is this has a red sheath on it. Now that red sheath is also pretty important to understand because it means that he's a student instructor. So we have a rank structure of junior students up to senior students, which are brown belts, and then in between brown belts and black belts is a thing called a student instructor. Now a student instructor, he's reminded, like I am, that he's going after a red belt, which is the highest possible ranking that you can get in our structure, okay? And that red also signifies him as a student instructor, meaning that he is specifically being trained to become an instructor, which is different than just becoming a black belt. Just because you have a black belt doesn't mean you know how to teach. So it's important to us that you actually understand and have the competence to be able to break these things down for students so they learn them step by step, so they're able to assimilate the information. You understand the psychology of education and that people learn differently. Some people learn by watching, some by hearing. So these things are pretty important, and we don't want our instructors just to be randomly teaching. We don't want somebody just because they're a black belt to be an instructor. So it's a very highly competitive post that requires an enormous amount of training on top of what we require for you to become a black belt. And then when you transition, and this is normally recruited from inside our ranking, so you could be a white belt and still get recruited to be a student instructor, okay? Or you could be a purple belt, or you could be recruited externally and brought into First Strike and designated as student instructor, and that's the only belt you'll wear. You're not going to wear any other belts up until the point you get your black belt. And when you get a black belt, your black belt has the red on it, okay? There won't be any stripes at first. That'll be a first dan. Or if you're just a standard black belt, what we call a standard black belt, then it will not have any red on it at all. It'll just be a solid black belt. And then when you get your first dan, it'll have 1 stripe, second dan, 2 stripes. And it's pretty much the same with instructors, except instructors have the red. So that red designation is, for us, a pretty big deal. And you'll notice when you look at the black belt, the label, I'll bring it close up. It says certified black belt on it. When you're a student instructor, it says student still. There's no other designation except for the fact that it's red. So that's the basic rank structure for First Strike. It's somewhat pedantic sometimes. It's not one of those things that we put a lot of weight in, as in you have to do rank. However, it is very important for us that you use it as a way to gauge your progress as you go through the syllabus, and nothing more than that. And some people like having a black belt because it's to them, it's a way to earn a credential. It's a way for them to gauge their progress, and they can be proud of it. Most of us who have a black belt work really, really hard for it. And so to us, it's, it's important. But at the same time, it's just like anything else. It's just one more credential that you hang on the wall. So thanks for listening. That's our basic rank structure. Take a look at the syllabus, and you can take a look at those requirements as they apply to the belts we just showed you.